You're listening to the Downeast Mike podcast, the quirky little podcast from Maine. And now, your host, Downeast Mike.
Good morning, everybody. This is Downeast Mike of the world famous Downeast Mike podcast, coming to you live from Downeast Maine. Happy vacation land to all of you just visiting. And good luck to you, those of you who live here actually year-round. Today is Sunday, June 2nd. Had to check the date there. 2024. If you're new to the podcast, our motto here is that some of this is whimsy, some of it's true, and the interpretation of it all is entirely up to you. We have no mean words here on the Downeast Mike podcast. Absolutely no mean words, just wholesome goodness from Downeast Maine. This podcast is actually just so popular amongst our 10 or 20 listeners. We're actually on the podcast.feedspot.com, Maine News Podcast. We're number 3 with only Angus King and what's that radio station down in Orland, WEM, that hippie station. They're nice people, but they're number 2, I think. In today's episode, energy crisis reaches the Skylab. That's from 1973. And a worker is rescued from a potato bin, 1973. You can see how good things happened then. There is an ear-biting trial from 1973. We'll talk about that a little bit. There's a lady gets bit by a horse in 1893. And we're going to look at Maine's ghostly plant. We're talking about a plant, the ghostly plant. We will jump right to the word of the day, heterotroph. 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 It's a noun, a heterotrophic individual. It's an organism or any type of insect, bird, fish, or human being that cannot make its own food and it must obtain it by eating other animals or plants. I think we have a lot of heterotrophs around us, don't we? And heterotrophic as an adjective or heterotroph as a noun. Hold on to that word in your mind. That will come back to be relevant later in the podcast. On this day, 1973, the Canadian cabinet was shutting down the idea of a ship route. They took an official stand against the use of Canadian waters by super tankers transporting oil to the Piston Company's proposed $350 million refinery in Eastport. And that, of course, that refinery never went through, but there was a lot of resistance there. If Canada didn't want a bunch of big tankers going through. And we go right from that, actually, to something a little more light. We found a Woolco ad from 1973, and they had a 19-inch Whirlwind lawnmower, push mower, hand-propelled mower. It's got a handle-mounted 4-cycle engine control, fingertip start, 3 horsepower, height adjustable, $94.95. And that was when you'd go in the store and they were already made up and all you had to do was put it in the back of the pickup truck. You didn't have to put it together yourself. They also had the webbed aluminum lawn furniture, 2 for $5 for the chairs, and then for the lounger, that was $6.27. Remember how that webbing would rot after like 2 seasons out in the fog and then you'd just fall through it or buy more webbing? And then a redwood picnic table for $24.93. This is Woolco in 1973. What about a bag of lime for 57 cents, 50 pounds, 50 pounds marble chips for 97 cents, and assorted rose bushes 97 cents. Boy, you could keep somebody busy real cheap at those prices. There was an energy crisis. Skylab was cutting back on activity. They were faced with a power shortage that threatened to cut short their Earth resource surveys, and the Skylab's pilots turned off fans and canceled a ground photographic run on Thursday to save precious electricity. Engineers and astronauts on the ground rushed tests to see if a daring spacewalk along the side of the big space station would be able to free a jammed solar generating wing. I remember when that wing jammed. Boy, that was traumatic. Mission Control said it appeared 2 of Skylab's 18 main battery circuits were lost permanently, in addition to the earlier loss of the 2 exterior wings that convert sunlight into electricity to charge the batteries. And then they go on to talk about it a bit. There was enough power to beam brief bursts of television back to Earth. One 10-minute telecast showed Conrad at the instrument panel controlling Skylab's $50 million observatory. Others showed the astronauts eating and displaying a telescopic view of the sun. You think with all that time up there, they'd have some good pictures and videos of UFOs and stuff for us, but nope. Here's an ad from the Maine Milk Committee. I wonder if they're still around. At 19 cents a pound or less, isn't it time you took a fresh look at milk? We don't think about buying milk by the pound, do we? 1973. What else we have here? Oh yeah, this is a good one. Here's another ad from 1973. Haven't you wanted to have your ears pierced? No fuss. No appointment necessary. At no extra charge, with a $7.50 purchase of 14-karat gold ball style earrings, you'll love having pierced ears. 2 days only. It was Friday and Saturday. And just come in, it says, a trained nurse from the Pakula Service Company will pierce your ears. We'll ask you to sign a special consent form, and if you're under 18 years of age, you must bring along your parent to sign for you. Sorry, no children under 8 years old. And that was at the Stearns Jewelry Department, street floor in Waterville. Walk in off the street and get some holes put in your body for only $7.50. That is a bargain. 1973. Thousands of livestock were slaughtered as the hoof and mouth disease was hitting in Austria. A major outbreak of hoof and mouth disease sweeping across livestock farms in eastern Austria. Schools, businesses, and moving houses have been closed, and large gatherings such as church services have been banned to halt the spread of the disease that kills animals. Farmers in 3 villages not affected have mounted roadblocks with tractors and pitchforks to bar outsiders. Humans can transmit the disease, but they are not affected by it. Thousands of cattle and pigs are being slaughtered. None of the main tourist centers in Austria, such as the Tyrol, Salzburg, and Carinthia, is affected. Hoof and mouth disease, 1973. What else do we have in that little segment there? Sea cadets were arrested in Colombia. David Sperry and David Scribner, cadets from the Maine Maritime Academy at Castine, Maine, they remained under arrest here Wednesday on charges of marijuana and possession of marijuana and trafficking. The youth's attorneys, Alvaro Angulo Bosa, told newsmen he's objecting to the arrest and demanding that the case be transferred from customs court to a local criminal court. There's no ground for keeping the boys under police arrest. Sperry, 20, from Damascotta, and Scribner, age 19, from Skowhegan, were arrested last week. Police say they were trying to take aboard their Academy school ship, the state of Maine, 7 pounds of Colombian marijuana. Later, they declared to the customs judge that on the Maine, everybody smokes marijuana. The Maine had arrived at this Caribbean port last week with 20 tons of medical aid shipment from the Massachusetts Antigua Alliance, an organization formed to help the Western Colombian state. Then they go on and see the Massachusetts governor's wife accompanied the shipment. As in a recognition of her special work, the president decorated her with the Order of San Carlos. If convicted, Sperry and Scribner could get 90 days in jail. And we looked for a follow-up in this story. We couldn't find it. The only thing we found that Bill Brennan was the captain of the ship at the time, and he personally arrested the boys as they came on board with their 7 pounds of marijuana. They were going to go big time. Here's a story about pushy potatoes in a bin trying to swallow a worker out of Presque Isle, Maine. Again, 1973. Charles Willett had a bout with potatoes Thursday, and for a while the potatoes were winning. Willett, 21, was trying to remove potatoes from a warehouse bin, but they weren't coming out of the hole he had made in the wood fast enough. So he climbed over the wall and he began to shuffle the potatoes around to loosen them. I started pushing them and then they started coming out faster. A fellow workman on the other side of the wall cautioned, "Watch out, you'll get sucked in." And before he realized what was happening, he had sunk into the shifting potatoes up to his waist. He couldn't move. He hung to the side of the bin and called out his dilemma. 2 other workmen began removing more potatoes, hoping they could free Willett, but it only caused more potatoes to roll in around him, reaching up to his neck. Sort of like those balls at the kids' play center. They jump into a big bin full of balls. "Don't pull any more potatoes," Willett shouted from behind the wall. "I'm sinking." The potatoes just grabbed me and pulled me down, causing him to lose his grip. The fellow employees blocked the potato hole and threw a rope over the wall. And then while one tried to console Willett, the other went to inform the owner, Edgar Allen. Edgar called the fire department. This is Presque Isle, Maine. Firemen using a chainsaw cut 2 holes in the sides of the bin, removed potatoes, and eventually Willett climbed out. He had been in the potato snare for about 45 minutes. His arms, he said, were tired, but otherwise he felt fine. It was just a big joke, if a little embarrassing afterwards, what he said. It'd be kind of frightening, trapped in a potato bin. 4 young men from Halifax, Nova Scotia, were given jail sentences here in Edmundston, New Brunswick, by Judge Joseph Berube on charges of being in possession of a stolen car. According to police, the 4 men, they give their names here. One of them was 16. Back then, I guess 16 was a man, Arthur Dawson. They were sentenced to 30 days in the jail. And then the other 2 were 6 months in the Perth Andover County Jail. According to police reports, the 4 men had a set of 50 car keys when they were apprehended, and they had been sniffing glue. The stolen car had been in possession of David Stokes of Middleton, Nova Scotia, and had been in the possession of the 4 men approximately 1.5 days. The case was investigated by the Edmundston Detachment of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. That was a big headline story, glue-sniffing car thieves. The Rockland man was acquitted in an ear-biting incident. David Svensson, charged with biting off a portion of another man's ear at a February 25th fight. This is out of Rockland. He was acquitted of those charges. Judge William McCarthy granted a defense motion for acquittal on the grounds that the state had failed to prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt. The judge also noted that the state would move to dismiss a companion charge of mayhem which had been brought against Svensson. In making the ruling, Judge McCarthy said the criminal decision did not negate the complainant from bringing civil action if he wished. The judge said he found that the two had been mutual combatants on the night of the fight and that they were of similar size and similar physical strength. Testimony from the state's witness, Norman Dean, showed that an altercation between Svensson and Knowlton developed over Svensson moving his car, which was blocking a driveway. The incident occurred at a party at the home of Mr. and Mrs. Daniel Gargan. Dean testified that Knowlton and Svensson had words about moving the car, and a fight soon developed. Following that incident, Svensson told of biting the man's ear off, Dean said, and that no one in the Gargan home believed it. Dean said that Svensson went outside and retrieved the piece of flesh to show the people in the house, and that he eventually flushed it down the toilet. Defense attorney Jack Simmons of Lewiston brought out in cross-examination that Knowlton had blocked Svensson's entrance to his car and Knowlton had grabbed the other man first. The 28-year-old Svensson was suspended from his position as a Maine state prison guard while the criminal charges have been pending against him. Contacted Thursday, the prison warden said that Svensson had been dismissed from the prison staff prior to the Thursday court action due to circumstances which were unrelated to these particular charges. Prosecuting the state's case was County Attorney Galen Lagasse. At the conclusion of the several-hour hearing, the May term of Superior Court was recessed until June 11th, blah, blah. So you got to wonder, did this guy, was he eating ears all the time when he was a prison guard, or what was the full story there? We never hear the resolution. All right, let's look at this day in 1903. Poland Spring House was opening. The big house, more beautiful than ever, welcoming its guests. Arrival of old guests and new at the famous hotel in Poland Spring, Maine. We know it now for the spring water. I remember when Andy Rooney went there one day in 60 Minutes, and he says, "Where is this spring anyway?" And the people at the Poland Spring said, "Well, it's underground." He wanted to know where the water came from. They pump it from all over. Under the brightest of skies, in the midst of all that was fair and lovely, the Poland Spring House opened its doors for the 28th season on Monday morning, with a house rapidly filling with guests. There'll be no formal exercises of opening this season, but the rebuilt and redecorated house speaks for itself in more ways than one, and really sets aside all need of a formal opening. They talk about how nice it is and guests coming from all over. Poland Spring House. Madison, Maine, on this day, Sheriff Dunbar seized a jug of whiskey on Friday, 2 cases Saturday afternoon at the Somerset Railroad Station. I'm sure he dumped it down the drain. Mr. J.H. Lord was called to his house in Fairfield, Maine, Friday, by the news of an accident to his wife who was badly bitten on the arm by a horse. A heavy frost was reported in this section by early risers Sunday morning in Madison, Maine. Heavy frost. Still gets cold in the overnight. There was a wireless telegraph system to be established along the New England coast for August maneuvers, and this was the Navy apparently. Admiral Bradford, a native of Maine, who is chief of the Bureau of Equipment at the Navy Department, says he's negotiating with Treasury for a bit of government land on Cape Elizabeth and at Lemoyne for stations for this purpose. Only land enough is required to erect a 190-foot pole and a little house for the operator. 1903, the radio communications. Well, it is time to look at our plant of the day here in Maine. This is Monotropa uniflora, a ghost plant, Indian pipe or ghost pipe. And I've seen these in the woods, and I didn't realize what they were. Indian pipe, it's a perennial wildflower with a wide geographic distribution throughout the U.S. It goes everywhere from Maine to California and from Florida to Alaska. It's not in the Southwest, Intermountain West, and Central Rockies. but it's not commonly encountered. It ranges in height from 10 to 30 centimeters, 15 inches. The entire plant is translucent, ghostly white, sometimes pale pinkish white, and commonly has black flecks. The leaves are scale-like and flecked with black on the flower stalk. And as the Latin part of it, uniflora, implies, it's just a single flower. Upon emerging from the ground, the flower is downwardly pointed, and as the anthers and stigma mature, the flower is spreading to almost perpendicular to the stem. And the fruit is what's in the capsule. As that matures, the flower becomes erect in line with the stem. Once ripened, the seed is released through slits that open from the tip to the base of the capsule. The plant is persistent after seed dispersal. And we have some pictures here we're looking at. It's very interesting looking. Emily Dickinson wrote about it. She called the Indian pipe the preferred flower of life. In a letter to Mabel Todd, she confides, "I still cherish the clutch with which I bore it from the ground when a wondering child. An unearthly booty, and maturity only enhances the mystery, never decreases it." It was very fragile to pick up. Yes, so it's unlike most other plants, it does not produce chlorophyll, the green pigment for photosynthesis, and hence that's the heterotroph that we called it. Anything else on this plant here? The process where it gets its nutrients is called mycoheterotrophy, and it's a method of gathering nutrients requiring it to attach itself to a host fungus, which is itself dependent on a host tree. The relationship between the host fungus and the host tree is generally mutually beneficial, as they can exchange important nutrients, but the ghost plant enters the equation only to steal nutrients from the tree via the fungus. The ghost plant is therefore often referred to as the parasitic species. You can go look for a ghost plant in the wood, but you're not supposed to pick them. They can be found in very dark areas like shaded forest floors, and as long as they can find suitable fungal hosts, the ghost plants are able to thrive. They propagate by being pollinated by bees, which collect nectar from the ghost plant's flowers and distributing their seeds. Well, short little podcast for you here today. We've been busy. I know you're busy. I appreciate you listening to the podcast. And we did tell that fellow over there at the poll, the podcast feed, that we'd give him a plug, and we did. And, you know, we appreciate everybody that listens to the Downeast Mike podcast. That's about it for today. Until next time, this is Downeast Mike wishing you and your loved ones a day that is full of grace, love, and kindness. We'll see you.
The chimney swifts return in June. We'll plan our getaway. We'll leave them for a day and go to the shore and play. Pretending to be two flowers living by the sea. We write the story and we know the ending. See roses in the wind on the coast of Maine. On the coast of Maine. So we write the story and we know the ending. See roses in the wind on the coast of Maine, in the summertime, in pretty sure. The sun gives us strength and the water gives us more. Gives us more. 'Cause we write the story and we know the ending. Sea roses in the wind on the coast of Maine. The coast of Maine. Sea roses in the wind